Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. And AM 630.
8:07 on WMAL. Gang's all here. Wilson's back from Florida, where he was covering the primary.
Did you like my tan lines? What do you think?
It's so awkward when you take your shirt off in there.
I especially love the bathing suit tan line.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Somebody's oversharing. That's supposed to stay in the house here, right? People aren't supposed to know about that.
Michael Barone, senior political analyst for the Washington Examiner, joins us now. All right, so what did you learn from Mitt Romney's victory in Florida?
Well, what I learned is that he's willing to get tough against the other guy, to go negative where there are some negative, where there's some basis for a plausible and credible negative campaign, that he can learn, that he can adopt some different tactics in debate and campaigning, and that he kind of wants the office.
Yeah, right. I've said that since day one, that he wants it more than everybody else. But let me ask you, has there ever been a case, in politics, where somebody actually outspent their opponent 3.5 to 1 and actually lost? I mean,
sure. I think there have been some cases that way. I mean, there's, it's like the old advertising business joke about the dog food. They spent huge amounts of money on on advertising, and everybody, the initial sales were great, and then they just petered out. Mm-hmm. They couldn't sell us stuff, and they did a huge amount of research and everything, and then one guy pipes up around the table, the dogs won't eat the food. Sometimes, sure, that happens.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Michael, you know more about the election process and virtually every election district in the entire country. So I want to ask you this question. As I looked at the results from Florida yesterday, I was thinking, how would Michael Barone look at this map? And what I saw was that Newt Gingrich carried the Panhandle, which is a more conservative area across the board, much more like Alabama and Georgia than it is the rest of Florida. And if I were Mitt Romney, having been thrashed soundly in South Carolina, and seeing that I lost the Panhandle of Florida, I would be concerned about some of the southern states going forward.
I think that's right. When you get into more southern accented territory, Mitt Romney does worse. There's been a clear kind of regional tilt working in all the polling going back a long time in this race, back to when the candidates were not well known. And I don't think he's going to have a path that's going to be all victories from here on in. Wow. I mean, one to look at is the non-binding primary in Missouri, or Missouri, as people outside Metro St. Louis call it, on February 7th. Now, that's a place where you've got a lot of those southern accented voters, as it were. If you go back and look at the 2008 results there, it's a very close three-way race. Mitt Romney is very competitive, runs about even with the winner John McCain in Metro St. Louis and Metro Kansas City, which by themselves cast almost exactly half of the statewide vote. But in the other half, where you've got lots of counties carried by Mike Huckabee, you have Romney getting only 24% of the vote. He's really weak in that big southwest Missouri area, down by the Ozarks, down by Springfield, and also in this Little Dixie in the northeast that was settled by people from Virginia in the early 19th century.
Here's the bigger question, though. I mean, we are beginning to see that there is a pathway to victory for Romney.
Yep.
Do you still see a pathway to victory for Gingrich? And is there any possibility that there is a pathway to victory for Rick Santorum or Ron Paul?
Well, Rick Santorum, the pathway to victory would be to take advantage of that Missouri situation that I just said. Newt Gingrich is not on the ballot there. If Santorum could beat Romney in Missouri, I think that might elevate his visibility and make him a more plausible alternative. Path forward to Newt Gingrich, I think it requires a certain amount of discipline, which we're not likely to get from Newt Gingrich. We've always said that he has, 10 of the 5 best new ideas, and unfortunately, he's not emphasizing one of the 5 best. The space in the moon colony getting to be a state with 13,000 people. That's really, was a loser for him. And I think basically that we've seen in the national polls that they're now following the same trajectory as Florida, that is to say with Romney gaining and Newt Gingrich leaving behind. I think there's, Romney managed to raise serious doubts that many people who have worked with Newt Gingrich have, that he does not have the kind of steady temperament and predictable way of doing business that people tend to want in a president. And I think that's I think that I've known Newt Gingrich for nearly 30 years, and I think what we saw on the stage on Tuesday on primary night was a man who knows he's not going to get it.
Michael, I wanted to ask you about, in Florida, were there bellwether counties where you saw things that portend well for Romney or perhaps Gingrich in a general election? For instance, Romney won the Hispanic vote. Does that portend well for the future, or is it different because they're Cuban Americans? Well,
you have Cuban Americans and Puerto Ricans who tend to be have a different stance vis-a-vis the immigration issue, which a lot of people mistakenly assume is the only thing that Hispanic voters care about. Cubans are kind of sui generis, and just as John McCain carried them very heavily 4 years ago, this time Mitt Romney did. But hey, it's a good moment for Florida, isn't it? In as much as you're talking about the single largest target state in the nation. The thing that I saw, Mary Catherine, and I think you're hinting at here, is that I saw where Mitt Romney increased his vote most over his 2008 thing. Right. It was in the bigger counties, in the metropolitan counties. I think that there are signs here that Mitt Romney can do better among affluent voters, and more specifically among affluent women, than we have been accustomed to see any Republican nominee doing since George H.W. Bush. We have taken it for granted that in these suburban counties with big rafts of affluent suburbs, you're talking about Hillsborough County, Florida, Orange, Seminole County, Florida, or things like Buckchester, Delaware, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, DuPage County, and the Collar counties in Illinois, et cetera, et cetera. We've been accustomed to see, the Democrats carry those, in the case of Barack Obama, with over 60% of the vote. Those numbers are not etched in stone. They could change. Those results have been in large part a result of cultural issues, of women in those affluent areas saying, I want the right to choose, right of, they want abortion rights. We don't like these, Southern Baptists running the Republican Party. I think those issues have obviously been eclipsed for most voters this year, and my sense is reading that primary data, reading some general election polling, is that Mitt Romney has more appeal to voters in this demographic. He's always run best in the more affluent areas. And I think that, he may have some trouble with the, white working class, white non-college voters.
Or the very poor, he might have.
Yeah, well, his comments the other day, the idea that he's disconnected from the ordinary person, I think he may have some trouble with those. On the other hand, they have been very anti-Obama, and I think he may do better with the affluent voters than we have thought a Republican can do these days.
We're out of time, but real quick, I need a one-word answer. Is the thing that he said about poor people, is it a thing or not a thing?
It's a little thing.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. As always.